The Long Road to Republic. How and why Ireland left the Union with the United Kingdom. The story of Ireland's departure from the Union with Great Britain is a protracted, complex, and often bloody saga, spanning over a century and a half from the Act of Union in 1801 to the final declaration of the Republic in 1949. It was a journey shaped by deep historical grievances, religious divides, economic disparities, and a fervent pursuit of national self-determination. The Union, how it began, and why it was resented. How the formal union of Great Britain and Ireland came into effect on January 1, 1801, with the passage of the Acts of Union 1800 in both the British and Irish parliaments. This legislation abolished the Irish Parliament in Dublin, creating the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. Irish members of Parliament and peers would thenceforth sit in the Parliament at Westminster. The history leading up: centuries of English-British control. Long before 1801, Ireland had been under varying degrees of English and later British control since the Anglo-Norman invasion of the 12th century. This had involved conquest, land confiscation, the plantations, and the imposition of a Protestant ascendancy over the native Catholic majority. The 1798 Rebellion. The immediate catalyst for the Act of Union was the 1798 Rebellion, led by the United Irishmen. Inspired by the American and French revolutions, this was a republican uprising seeking an independent, non-sectarian Irish republic. Its brutal suppression, coupled with French attempts to aid the rebels, convinced the British government that a separate Irish Parliament was a security risk and that a full legislative union was necessary to prevent future rebellions and French interference. Promises unfulfilled. To secure the passage of the Union, promises were made by the British government, including the hope of Catholic emancipation, allowing Catholics to sit in Parliament. However, this promise was not immediately fulfilled, leading to widespread disillusionment among the Catholic population. The deepening divide. Why Ireland sought freedom. The reasons for Irish resentment toward the Union and their eventual drive for independence were multifaceted. Religious discrimination. The penal laws, though easing by the 19th century, had historically enforced the dominance of the Anglican Church of Ireland and systematically discriminated against Catholics, the vast majority of the population, and dissenters, Presbyterians in Ulster, even after Catholic emancipation in 1829 achieved through immense pressure from Daniel O'Connell. A sense of second-class citizenship persisted, especially regarding land ownership and political influence. Economic neglect and exploitation. Ireland, largely agricultural, was often perceived as economically exploited by the industrializing British Empire. The most devastating example was the Great Famine, 1845 to 1849. While a natural disaster, potato blight, the British government's delayed and inadequate response, adherence to laissez-faire economic policies, and continued grain exports from Ireland during starvation, solidified a belief that the Union was detrimental to Irish welfare. The famine led to mass emigration and a deep and lasting bitterness. Cultural suppression. The Union was seen by many as an attempt to assimilate Ireland culturally. The decline of the Irish language, the dominance of English institutions, and the perceived marginalization of Irish identity fueled a cultural revival movement in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, which often intertwined with political nationalism. The quest for self-determination. At its core, the desire for independence was about the right of the Irish people to govern themselves. This sentiment gained strength through various movements. Repeal movement. Daniel O'Connell, 1820s-1840s, advocated for the peaceful repeal of the Act of Union. Young Ireland, 1840s. A more radical, culturally nationalist movement that culminated in a small, failed rebellion in 1848. Feminism, 1850s-1860s. A Republican secret society that advocated physical force to achieve an independent republic, influencing later movements. Home Rule movement. Charles Stewart Parnell, late 19th century, sought devolution of power within the Union, with a restored Irish Parliament handling domestic affairs. This came close to success multiple times but was ultimately thwarted by the House of Lords and, crucially, by the determined opposition of Ulster Unionists. The road to revolution. When and how the break began. The early 20th century became the decisive period for Ireland's separation. 1912–1914. Home Rule crisis and Ulster Unionism. The introduction of the Third Home Rule Bill sparked intense opposition from Ulster Unionists, predominantly Protestant, concentrated in the northeast, who feared being ruled by a Catholic-dominated Dublin Parliament. They formed the Ulster Volunteer Force (UVF) and threatened civil war, while Irish nationalists formed the Irish Volunteers. World War I temporarily shelved the Home Rule Bill, but the opposing militias remained. Easter Rising, April 24 to 29, 1916. While the Home Rule Bill was suspended, a small group of radical Republicans, led by figures like Patrick Pearse and James Connolly, launched an armed rebellion in Dublin. Though militarily a failure and initially unpopular, the British execution of its leaders ignited massive public sympathy and shifted nationalist opinion dramatically away from Home Rule and towards full independence. The 1918 general election. This election became a de facto referendum on Irish independence. The Republican Party Sinn, which had been linked to the Easter Rising, swept 73 of the 105 Irish seats, largely obliterating the old Irish Parliamentary Party Home Rule and gaining a clear mandate for an independent republic. Formation of Éireann and the War of Independence 1919 to 1921. When, on January 21, 1919, Sinn MPs refusing to sit in Westminster, convened in Dublin as Éireann Assembly of Ireland, declaring an independent Irish Republic. How on the same day, the Irish Volunteers, now increasingly known as the Irish Republican Army, IRA, initiated a guerrilla war against British forces in Ireland. This brutal conflict, marked by ambushes, reprisals and atrocities on both sides, became known as the Irish War of Independence. The treaty and its aftermath. The formation of the Irish Free State, the Anglo-Irish Treaty, December 6, 1921. After intense negotiations, a truce was called. Irish leaders Michael Collins and Arthur Griffith signed a treaty with the British government. How the treaty established the Irish Free State as an independent dominion within the British Empire, with status similar to Canada or Australia. It included a controversial oath of allegiance to the British King and granted Britain the use of 3 naval ports. Treaty ports. Partition. Crucially, the treaty allowed Northern Ireland, the 6 counties of Ulster with a Unionist majority, which had been created by the Government of Ireland Act 1920, to opt out of the Free State, which it immediately did. This formalized the partition of Ireland. The Irish Civil War, June 1922, May 1923. The treaty bitterly divided the Irish nationalist movement. Those who supported it, a treaty led by Collins and Griffith, argued it was a necessary stepping stone to full independence, while anti-treaty Republicans, led by Eamon de Valera, viewed it as a betrayal of the Republic declared in 1919. This led to a devastating civil war, which the pro-treaty side won, ensuring the Free State's survival. Stepping stones to full sovereignty. Completing the how and when. The Irish Free State, established on December 6, 1922, was not yet a fully independent republic in the eyes of many. Eamon de Valera, who came to power constitutionally in 1932, systematically dismantled the remaining links with Britain. Dismantling the treaty in 1930s, de Valera removed the oath of allegiance, eliminated the Governor-General, the King's representative, and abolished the right of appeal to the British Privy Council. Statute of Westminster 1931. This British Act granted legal autonomy to the Dominions, effectively removing Britain's power to legislate for them and allowing the Free State to amend its own constitution. Constitution of Ireland, Bunyashi Nairi in 1937. This new constitution replaced the Free State Constitution. It declared Ireland a sovereign, independent, democratic state, and effectively removed all mention of the king, though it did not explicitly declare a republic. It referred to the head of state as the President of Ireland. The Republic of Ireland, Act 1948. When this act was passed by the Oireachtas Irish Parliament in December 1948 and came into effect on April 18, 1949, Easter Monday. How it formally declared Ireland a republic and simultaneously removed the last residual functions of the British monarch in relation to Ireland, such as signing credentials for diplomats. This act also automatically led to Ireland leaving the Commonwealth. Conclusion. Ireland's separation from the United Kingdom was not a single event but a complex multi-stage process driven by centuries of accumulated grievances and a fundamental desire for self-governance. From the unwanted imposition of the Union in 1801, through the famine-induced trauma, the rise of nationalism, the crucible of rebellion and war 1916 to 1921, the divisive Anglo-Irish Treaty and Civil War, to the gradual dismantling of British ties, culminating in the declaration of the Republic in 1949. It was a profound and often painful journey that shaped the identity of both nations and left an enduring legacy, most notably the partition of the island.